Alright, okay, hey guys, my name is Rob, and this is going to be my first video guide for League of Legends, featuring Sivir. I want to get into a little bit in depth on a particular way to play Sivir. It's not the only way to play her. Recently she's gotten a nice buff. Her Q spell will now scale with attack damage, which is really nice for her because it gives her the one piece of the puzzle that she was missing, which was late game relevance. So now that that's been fixed, and with another not so recent buff to her spell shield, making it 3 seconds instead of its old 1.5, and making the mana return on it pretty decent, 150 at level 1, I think is really put Sivir over the top in terms of power. I play a lot of different heroes, a lot of mid-solo type heroes, so I know the job well that Sivir's supposed to do, and I know what is expected of a mid-solo, and I can pretty much say that she's in the top 3 for mid-solo in terms of power right now. And the way to get her there is through, this is one way to do it anyway, and I'm going to talk about a specific build and a specific rune set and mastery set, and then talk a little bit about the way to play her. So without further ado, moving on to the guide. Okay, so Sivir, her title is the Mistress of Battle, and I think that's pretty fitting, especially when you see the build that I'm going to be showing you and the way to play her. Her skills, real quick. Boomerang Blade, this is the skill that you're going to be maxing out first. This is pretty much everything that she needs in terms of harassment, farming, poking, keeping lanes pushed, killing towers, etc., etc. It has enormous range. It's not the fastest moving projectile in the game, but once you get used to leading with it, it's pretty easy to hit with because it's so wide, and it travels, like I said, really far. Ricochet, this will be the second skill that you max out, but you won't get 1 point in it until level 4. So you're going to basically build, or your skill order is going to be Boomerang Blade whenever it's available to level, do that. Level 2, get 1 level of spell shield, and then don't level that one up until you're hitting level 13, etc. So these 2 skills here are basically your 2 skills that you're going to level up first. Ricochet, each level adds another bounce to her attack. The bounces do reduce damage, but that's okay because it just gives her this plus the Boomerang Blade makes it so that she can clear entire waves of creeps in seconds, or like less than 2 seconds. So that's how she pushes so fast and becomes so dangerous. Alright, moving on. Her ultimate, On the Hunt. This is what pretty much adds everything to Sivir's team fighting abilities. You can use it to save people, you can use it to escape. It's your main escape mechanism. It's also can be used offensively. If you just get done winning a big team fight, pop On the Hunt if it hasn't been used already, and charge down a lane. Your whole team, gets the movement speed bonus. Obviously the attack speed bonus too. We didn't talk too much about spell shield. I'm going to have a video guide that really details how to use this skill in particular to your advantage. This is a really imbalanced skill if you get good at using it. You can use it to replenish your mana. You can use it to frustrate your enemies. It's an escape mechanism in its own right. It's sometimes 3 seconds of invulnerability just because of the way it plays out. If you pop it early, it's not the worst thing in the world because your enemies will leave you alone while it's on, letting you either get away or get some last hits if it's early on in the laning process, etc. Okay, so moving on, first and foremost to the runes. Alright, now this is the main rune page that I use for Sivir. There's two that I fluctuate back and forth about. I'll talk to you a little bit about the other one, but I'll tell you exactly why I'm using this particular rune set first. As you can see, it's almost all physical damage per level, the physical damage per level runes. I've used red, yellow, and quints for that. So at level 18, that's going to give me 45 damage. The blues have really small physical damage per level, so they're kind of not worth it. And the extra mana regen is good on the blues, so I think the blues, I use the blues here for the extra mana regen. We're not going to get any mana regen items other than the chalice. So the chalice plus these blue mana regen runes are all you'll ever need. Okay, so why would I take 45 damage scaling per rune, or 45 damage over 18 levels? Seems like, oh, by the time you get to level 18, what is 45 damage going to do for you? A lot of people think that you should use your runes and masteries to augment your early game, and there's something to be said for that, and I have a build for that too, specifically. But I think what Sivir really lacks is that little bit of extra punch late game. So with 45 damage, that's like basically by level 18 you've gotten a free BF sword. And it really helps out a lot. It can make the difference between getting kills or taking down towers. And what do you sacrifice for that? Well, you sacrifice some early game survivability, mostly. So what do I do to augment that? Moving right on to the Masteries. Okay, so the Masteries I've selected here, I've taken a 0, 21, 9. So my runes are pretty offensive in nature, and my Masteries, to compensate for that, are defensive in nature. And all of this will also work into the build as well. So, going over the Masteries, I've got a 0, 21, 9 build, as I said. In the defense tree, I've taken pretty much all the core defensive Masteries. Armor, magic resist, dodge, damage, block, hit points, and of course defensive mastery. There's just not too much in the offensive tree for Sivir when you have not as much as I think is in the defensive tree that she needs, especially when we start talking about how we're going to build her. Moving on, you see I've got good hands here instead of, some people like Perseverance. I think Perseverance, if you actually do the math on it, I've seen the math done, it adds almost nothing. It's a pretty much total waste of an ability. So even though 10% death time isn't the greatest, it's better than your other alternatives. And spatial accuracy, because you're going to be getting teleport, and yeah, you want as low cooldown as you can get on it. Alright, awareness, that's a no-brainer. You're getting 5% extra experience. That's a hard adjustment that will last you for the whole game. It's pretty good level or second tier mastery to get, and there's just nothing in tier 1 or 2 that Sivir needs to justify a 9/21 build. So that's, and then of course the greed for my last point. So that's basically my justifications for picking the runes that I did and the masteries that I did. So why don't we talk a little bit now about how to build her. As you can see here, I've got a build already set up here, and this is exactly the order of the items that this is all the items that I get, and in the correct order too. So I would say that you start the game with your, what is that called, Pendant of Rejuvenation, or yeah, the Pendant of Rejuvenation, and a hit point, or a health potion. So those are your two starting items. As soon as you get 890 gold, you're going to go mid, of course, As soon as you get 890 gold, go ahead and port back, pick up your chalice. If you for some reason waited or you just couldn't get away and you have a little bit of extra money, grab as much of the boots pieces as you can as well on your first port back. But the critical thing is get the chalice. Don't wait for the boots if you have a second to port back. Once you have your chalice money, that's your main focus. Alright, so after you get your chalice, I usually can get it in less than 6 minutes, but you don't have to feel like that's you're slow if you don't. I mean, it just all depends on the laning. It could be a tough lane and there's nothing you could do about it. You could just be having an off game and you're not last hitting well, etc. So you want it before the 9-minute mark. I would say if it starts getting any more than 9 minutes, then you're really sort of lagging behind. But the 8 to 9 minute mark should be a good goal for your average beginner. Once you get that, port back. You're going to take flash and teleport. If you don't want to take flash, you could take something else in this place, but teleport is that's not optional. You have to have teleport to play Sivir correctly. The Berserker Boots, if you got your chalice in about 7 or 8 minutes, you can get your Berserker Boots in about 10 to 11 minutes into the game. I wouldn't say you always go back for them, but I would say maybe 60% of the time, as soon as I have the 925, the 920 for Berserker Boots, I go back and get those two. And then if my teleport isn't refreshed, I just run back to the mid lane or another lane, etc. Moving on. Okay, so these two items are pretty standard. Lots of different builds will use Chalice and Berserker Boots for Sivir. So this is kind of a no-brainer. The Chalice, what does it do for you? As soon as you get it, you can spam your Boomerang Blade. You can leave your Ricochet turned on at about levels 8, because there's no real point in having it turned on before level 8 anyway. So at level 8, you can turn on your Boomerang or your Ricochet, spam Boomerang pretty much all you want. Farm with it, harass with it, use it liberally. That's the whole goal of getting this Chalice and adding in the mana regen runes. So moving on. Warmogs. A lot of people will say that Warmogs is a bad item, that it's noob item, so on and so forth. A lot of the bad rep that Warmogs gets is because it takes just so long for your average hero to charge it all the way up. It needs a lot of stacks before it becomes a useful item. Well, with Sivir, she doesn't really have that problem at all. As soon as you get as soon as you get your Warmogs, which should be about 20 minutes into the game, assuming you're on time, 8 minutes for the Chalice, 10 to 12 for the Boots, 20 minutes into the game you should have your Warmogs, maybe 22 if you're having kind of a slow game, but that's about when you're looking at it. You can have this thing charged up within 5 minutes of getting it with the teleport. You just teleport to a lane that's been pushed, clear them all out, you're going to get all the minion kills, and right there is like an extra 150 hit points per wave or more, depending on how many creeps are in the wave. So what happens is that you end up with an item that gives you 1,430 hit points, which is pretty good for one item. Now that's going to be the only hit point item that we get, and it's really the only survivability item that we get too. So it's not really out of the ordinary for, I wouldn't go as far as to call Sivir a carry, but for ranged DPS heroes to get at least one survivability item. So there's my justification for for getting Warmog. She can charge it up fast, and it has some really great synergy with the next item, which is Atma's Impaler. Now, Atma's Impaler obviously is going to give you a passive damage bonus based on how much hit points you have. So if you can see here in my build, with a fully charged Warmogs at level 18 with the Masteries and runes that we've talked about, you're going to have about 3,300 hit points.